with such an impressive career trajectory, I'm going to let you introduce yourself to the audience.
Oh, we're doing ourselves. Okay, hi, I'm Jen Khoury. I work for Comcast Corporation, so that's Comcast to NBC Universal. We bought NBC Universal in New York, LA, et cetera, maybe 8 or 9 years ago. Yeah, I do corporate communications and digital for corporate, and so that means we talk to the press, we train our executives. I think our topic is how to command a room, so that's particularly relevant here, and how to do all of that. My job is to protect our brand, and so whether that means blocking and tackling and handling crises, or promoting, all the great things that Comcast does. On the Comcast side of the house, we have, and I think across the board, we have a huge respect for design and the design community. Every piece of our company has design in it. If you look at if anyone's from Philadelphia, I think many of you are, there's a giant tower, the Comcast Center, and an even bigger tower going up, and we've got Lord Norman Foster as the architect of the second tower, who's also doing the Apple headquarters. So every detail of that building, every design detail has been carefully thought through, everything from our logo to our building to the products you see in your home. So we have industrial designers, we have people who are designing the remote controls and the functionality behind them, and UX designers who are designing our websites. We also have graphic designers across the company, and most of that work is led in-house. And then on my team, we have a really talented person who's developing all the design for the corporation, and how we look and feel and show up in the world on the website and other places, and everything from the screen on your television and sort of how that comes to life, and how you search on the voice remote to everything in between. So that's Comcast.
All right. Well, I'm so excited about what you're going to be talking about, commanding a room. Let's jump right into it. So, basic foundation of how to command a room.
So I think some people are just naturally gifted at this topic and love to do it, and some people really need to work at it. And there's a sort of a neutralizing factor that goes across all of the spectrum. So how many people would raise your hand, how many people would love to do what Andrew's doing for the rest of the day? So get rid of Andrew and you just jump into a seat. One, you've got like 5
awesome.
takers. How many people think that is the worst possible idea on the planet? And then you've got a lot of neutrals, and most people are in the neutral category. They don't relish the limelight, but they'll do it, and they're happy to do it if they're comfortable with the topic and the conversation. And so we've had a number of people who are, CEO level folks who are really, really powerful in a conference room or a boardroom, but get on stage and, they just they become
deer in headlights.
Really
Yes.
nervous, deer in headlights. And then you've got other people who are pretty junior, and they're up there like, I got this. This is awesome.
Nice.
I'm great. And so some of it is you're just comfortable. And then some of it is just practice. Practice, practice, practice. Whatever you're doing, whether that's in a conference room or boardroom or on stage, you just have to practice. We work with, for speeches, we train people all the time on how to walk in, how to show up, how to use your hands, how not to use your hands. You never want to put your hands in your pockets and just, and sort of hide. You never want to clutch the podium. You have the podium clutchers who are hanging on for dear life. But if you are more comfortable behind a podium, you should stand behind that podium and use it versus walk around the room. Ideally, if you walk around the room and you make eye contact with different people in the room or just spots in the room, you're going to feel more comfortable and do better. If you get stuck on someone's eyes, that their feedback or their eye contact could throw you. And so there's all these tips that you give people. But practice is key. We work with a gentleman named Bill McGowan for some of our most senior speech work, and he's trained Sheryl Sandberg and Mark Zuckerberg from Facebook and a lot of TV personalities, and he was just recently on the Kardashians, training the Kardashians, which I can't even imagine.
They need as much work as they can.
But he was training the Kardashians recently, and so his book is called Pitch Perfect, and he does a really good job of talking about if you're talking to people, whether that's on stage or in a boardroom or in a conference room or just one-on-one, you have your main point, and then you have an anecdote or an example or a story. And some people want to make their points, but they don't always tell a story or humanize it or make it real. And so I just told you that Bill McGowan trained the Kardashians. Now, to some of you, that's going to be a lot cooler, and he becomes much more relevant to you than if I just say I had this guy who wrote a book who helps to train our executives. And so providing context or an example when you're communicating is really helpful. It helps ground the audience, and it helps make it real. Or I might have just told you that Comcast is a place that really loves design because I appreciate that this is what you all do. and I want you to know that I work for a company that respects your work and likes your work. And so, providing contextual examples to what you do to ground it in your audience and understanding your audience, whether that's one person or 100 people, is really relevant.
I feel like there were 12 different insights in what you just said. I'm glad we're recording this because I was just chock full of knowledge. Common pitfalls. You already leaned into, be prepared.
Yeah, be
so
prepared.
What are the
key.
common pitfalls?
I think the key, so lack of preparation for anyone is a pitfall. I think, misunderstanding your audience is a pitfall. So if you think that your audience is aiming for, I was talking to Maribeth when I came in and asking, so what do they care about? Who are they? What are they looking to do in their careers? Understanding who you're talking to so that you can be relevant. Reading the room is really key. If everyone's on their phone, you should change your topic as you've lost them. And that happens a lot in a small conference room, not just in a big audience. And so I think those are some of the things that you need to do. And if you don't do them, things start going badly.
Okay, and that's helpful. So understanding your audience, being prepared, and those things are great for whether it's a meeting room or a larger space like this. Understanding who they are. I'd like to build on that. How a lot of the people here are in mid-creative career.
Mm-hmm.
How do you tailor the commanding of the room for a CEO or an executive?
If you're talking to your CEO?
Yes.
So you really have to be prepared. I think if you're talking to your boss that you deal with every day, you have to be prepared but honest. You want to have a good relationship and have a good dialogue with that person. If you're doing the creative presentation to the CEO, you're pitching whatever it is that you've just done, I think you have to know your stuff and you have to be really confident in what you're saying. If you're nervous, that's okay. But if you know your stuff, that'll quickly, the nervousness will evaporate as you begin to talk and you're confident in your presentation and you're confident in why. I think you should look at or ask as many people about that. If you know that person, well, great. If you don't know that person, ask around who's presented to them before, who knows that person, what makes them tick. Do they ask lots of questions? Are they going to grill me? What do I know about that person so that I know everything that there is to know? I also find who else is going to be in the room with you, who can help you, who's going to save me if I'm stuck, who's going to come to my rescue. So I actually believe that meetings are a bit of a science. They don't just happen. If you just if you're leading a meeting and you just let it happen, then you've only done 50% of the work. I think you need to sort of game out what you want to have happen. Now you can't do this if you're in meetings 10 times a day, you can't do this all day long, you drive yourself crazy. But I think you need to say, okay, I've got 5 people in the room, I've got my boss who's gonna help me. I'm gonna ask my boss, are you introducing me? Am I introducing myself? How are we doing this? And where can and I may need your help on this question or that question. And so gaming it out a little bit really helps in doing some research. It all comes down to being prepared. And then just knowing your content. If you know your content really well, it really helps.
The being prepared, definitely. Knowing and having allies, I think, is a really good insight, especially when you work on something that I've been hearing
and
a lot.
And if you have adversaries too, that's a good thing to know. There's somebody in the room that's sort of my adversary on this project. There's somebody in the room that tends to be critical, or there's another person that maybe you pre-meet with the person. Maybe it's the CEO and the CMO, the head of marketing, and maybe you're presenting to both of them. Maybe you pre-present to the CMO and get his or her insights first, so that if that's a potential ally or adversary, so that you can make them an ally before you do the presentation.
That's really smart to know.
It's like jujitsu. It's like the art of war. You have to figure out every angle to help. Well, because it just gives you confidence. Yeah. Then you can incorporate their feedback in advance of getting to the person you're really trying to get the buy-in from.
And you bring them on your side.
Exactly. You bring them on.
You touched on a little bit this idea of pre-wiring and what to do advance of the meeting or advance of the presentation. Can you talk about a couple more strategies?
Pre-wiring. So I think, know the people. So I think humanity is a really important part of every job, especially with this, you think about design and creative and how important it is. And so I don't think it's just about knowing your subject, but it's about knowing the people. We talked about knowing the CEO, but I think knowing what makes people tick makes you a better boss, makes you a better manager, makes you understand that person. If you're in the freelance side or you're a contractor and you don't know the company, whatever you can do to know the company. You don't ever just want to be adjacent to the work that's happening. You want to be in the center of everything. You want to be sort of in the flow, in the lifeblood, and you become more capable of doing that the more you know and the more you feel and understand. But everyone's a person. Do they have kids? Do they, what do they do over the weekend? I actually start almost every meeting with something personal. or talking to folks about something personal. I don't think that they all necessarily know that I'm doing it because I want to make everyone comfortable and give everyone an opportunity to sort of share in the meeting. But there's lots that you can do to sort of warm up the room and sort of advance your cause.
And you as an executive leader, it makes you human.
Totally.
It makes you like a normal person. You're like, hey, like, look, I have problems with my 2 little girls at home too. You know,
right.
Just like it just makes you a normal,
a normal
human being.
Redhead.
We'll talk afterwards. But you know, it's interesting, as executive leaders are now getting coached to be more accessible, to be more human. What advice can you share with the audience about the executive pop-in or the drop-by, which is becoming more of a thing now?
So I think, we had one, the CEO of the cable company, so that company has like 80,000 employees, about 80 or 90,000 employees. So he's a CEO of a large group. Well, he would walk around the halls of the building, just stop by your office and say, what are you working on? Do the same thing in the elevator. So I always refer to this as people say it's your elevator pitch, but when somebody stops by and says, what are you working on? That is almost like an interview. It doesn't have to be an interview and that you get nervous, but you should have a really good answer to that question that you pregame in advance of somebody stopping by. Oh, I'm working on this really exciting, what's the one thing that you can say that's insightful or engaging or exciting? Oh my God, I'm so excited about this. It's this new whatever, and I really think you want to take a look at it. If they stop by your desk, you would even show them a preview of it. Or if you see them in the elevator, what are you working on? I spoke with a group of like 200 women engineers at our company. And I said, when the CEO sees you in the elevator and asks you what you're working on, what do you say? And they said, they sort of, that it wasn't something that they had ever thought of, that they should be prepared for that. It's an opportunity to position themselves as the very senior person at the company. And so to be ready with, what's the thing I'm interested in, or how was your weekend, or whatever, to be confident enough to have that conversation and have a couple of examples ready that you can give someone, I think is really helpful. And
it's helpful just to clarify, to have that pitch related to
your work.
Your work and how it's driving the company forward.
That's right. You have to, if you have to think about who's asked, again, it comes back to the people. So who's asking you the question? If it's the CEO, what are you doing that is most interesting to the CEO? Don't pick the pet project that's sort of the side thing that you're working on here that doesn't really drive the company. If it's the CEO, pick something that drives the company. I also think that something else that you mentioned you can't forget is everyone's a person. Like, humanity is really, really important. It's what makes everyone, look at your work and cry or be amazed or be in awe or whatever that motivating factor is. And so you have to be yourself. If you are in a job and you can't be yourself at all, and we're all different, we have different personalities. You mentioned girls. I have 2 girls. One is 7, one is 4. They are so different. Every one of us is different. And so if you can figure out what makes someone tick, or if you can bring part of yourself to the party, whatever you're comfortable sharing, I think it makes it much more fun. If you're just flat, or you're just corporate, or you've got lots of interests and things like that, and they don't come out, if you're funny, be funny. Just don't be inappropriately funny. If you're into something or you had something to share, you share that, but you do it in a way that still looks professional, and in a way that you show up in the world in an interesting way. If you look at all the great speakers, like Michelle Obama, for example, who did one of my favorite speeches, and I'm an independent voter, so whatever your politics are, I'm right down the middle. But she did an incredible speech at the last Democratic National Convention that I thought was far better than anybody else. And she just, the way that she looks comfortable, she talks about herself, she looks like a person you'd want to have coffee with in that speech. Forget what she does in other places, but she delivered that in a way that brought herself into the speech. And to do that in any meeting, speech, engagement is really hard sometimes, but it's really important. So
bring a little bit of yourself into your work.
I always tell some junior people this too, like, be yourself. Like, don't be so nervous that you're not yourself. Just don't be the self that's at the cocktail party or at Center City Sips that's, listening to the club music. Don't be that self, but be your version of yourself that is appropriate for the audience.
There's a little bit of yourself, and it goes to your earlier point.
Yeah, if you have a spark and you have a sparkle, bring that sparkle. People like that. People feel comfortable. I have a woman who worked on my team who was pretty junior, and she was very comfortable with senior management and behaved to them as though, and advised them and behaved to them as though they were almost on her level, was respectful, but was sort of charming and funny with them. And she was asked to be on so many different projects because people are so used to people just sort of kowtowing to them and not giving them honest feedback and things like that. And so having that element of personality that she injected was really key for her to get promoted and be successful.
That's a good strategy. I want to build on that tangentially. I know you're very active in women's leadership. And some things that I've been hearing too was about the women here in the audience about what are some things that would be specifically effective for me? Yeah. Maybe you can speak to that a little bit.
Sure. I think so. There's lots of conversations about women in leadership right now, and it's a loaded topic, so you have to sort of be careful how you talk about it. But I tend to just say what's on my mind, so we'll go with that.
Are we okay with that? Do we can? Yeah.
So
I'm anti-feminist. If you could just talk more about women, in the kitchen.
That's great.
Thank you, Al.
I actually think women have a huge advantage, which is maybe a surprising comment. I think women have a huge advantage in the workforce that they can take advantage of. I think, I think women can be. You have to use what you have, and so whether it's your personality or I can walk into a room. I go into many meetings with 10 men and me, or 12 men and two women often. And I'll often wear a red dress to those meetings and really high heels, like appropriate high heels, but high heels, not like the kind that have the,
Not the Kardashian heels?
You have to look professional. You have to look like you have something to say and that you're professional. So you in my line of work, you have to sort of be there, but you don't have to, women should not try to be, women should be whomever they want to show up as, and they should wear that proudly. And men should be whoever they want to be and show up proudly. I had a guy who worked for us who wore Hawaiian shirts every day. And we were a really corporate environment, and everybody noticed him because he was the creative person with a Hawaiian shirt. And so it was great, and that I thought was really cool that he sort of brought himself. And in the creative world, you have a lot more flexibility, but I think how you show up and sort of embracing that, walking in with confidence, I think is great. You just have to not, if you are in a male-dominated room, you have to not worry about that. You just have to be yourself and be as confident as possible. And I think men, I don't know how many men are in women-dominated rooms, but I would say I think that's just as uncomfortable for men as it is for women to be, the only man in the room. I have a very women-heavy department that I run, as it happens to be. Communications happens to be a field that skews heavier in women, and so I'm actually very aware when there's one man in the room, and I have to make sure that I don't, say something about, I don't know, something that's going to make him feel uncomfortable, like talk about, I don't know. I can't even think of the topic. Breastfeeding is a good one. The details of breastfeeding. Oh my God. Where did you guys come today? We don't do that with the boys in the room. So.
I'd love to field one or two quick questions. Any questions? Or about breastfeeding or otherwise?
I have a question.
Yes.
Yeah. And I'm actually curious to know Beth Mara's answer to this question as well. So I am an idiot, and I use humor when I'm uncomfortable, like right now.
I thought that was awesome.
I'm in therapy for it. Shout out to Dr. H. So he keeps reassuring me that it's okay to be funny, it's okay to come with this charming bit of your personality, but I feel like it's a bad thing.
I think it's a great thing.
I would second that.
I think it's a great thing. I remember you. Let's say you were. I will remember you, and I will think, oh, she's that charming person.
Woman yelled breastfeeding.
But it was a completely relevant. It was a completely relevant example. I used the example of this young woman in my group who sort of ascended literally with the most senior people at my company because she brought sort of that charm of her personality. And the charm can be humor, or the charm can be delightfulness, whatever that charming part is. It could be wit, it could be insight. All of those things are really powerful. I think that's a gift. You have to, if you have a spectrum of humor from here to here at work, do the middle spectrum. Just do the middle. Don't tell the interview. Yeah, Howard Stern. Anything Howard Stern should probably, be, is either illegal in the office or inappropriate. So don't do that, but do the rest.
That's great. Index and understand.
Yeah.
I think that was really good.
I worry about balancing those things. Because
Well, you have to back it up with substance. If you're just funny, and you're not like a completely amazing person at what you do, then you're the funny one. You want to be the charming, funny one that has, like, that everybody wants there because you're so damn good. That's what you want. You want to be so damn good and also funny that you're a fun person to be around, and you're so good no one wants you to be out of the room. They always want you in the room. And so that's the balance, I think, just right.
Thank you. And I think that's a great point to end on.
Great,
Thank you very much, Jen.